And good Sunday morning, everybody. Welcome to Picks on Politics. I'm Dan Manarino. Well, New York City Public Housing once again has new leadership. The Adams administration really hoping that this team brings fresh perspective to a decades-old problem for the city. This past week, NYCHA reported $78 billion is needed to make the necessary repairs. More than half those repairs need immediate attention within the year. Now, it's a tall task for anyone willing to take on that very challenge. And right now, that is newly appointed CEO Lisa Bova-Hiatt and board chair Jamie Rubin. This morning, they are joining me now to go on the record. And Lisa and Jamie are here, so great to have you both to talk about this important topic for so many New Yorkers. So let me begin, because Lisa, you've been the interim CEO since last September, right? But both of you really taking on long-term roles here within the agency. So let me ask you both this question. What made you want to stay on long-term for something that's such a tall task?
NYCHA is so much a part of the city of New York. I can't imagine a city without NYCHA. And as somebody who's a third-generation New Yorker, I am incredibly dedicated to making sure that we have sustainable, affordable housing for this generation and generations in the future.
Jamie?
A similar answer. I'm 55 years old. I've lived in New York almost my entire life, and NYCHA is a part of the fabric of the city, and anything I can do to restore it to what it once was and to help out people that I know already, Lisa and her team, will do.
And a lot of folks would say that somebody with New York experience is what's needed for a job, which is just the fabric of New York City, right? And a lot of what you really hope to accomplish comes down to securing funding, right? So just last week, NYCHA said it needed $78 billion to fully renovate and restore all of its buildings, which is way up from a prior estimate, which is hovering around $45 billion, right? So what did you see as the increase here from 45 to 78?
Well, the $40 billion number came from a 2017 physical needs assessment. And as we all know, over the past several years, especially coming out of the pandemic, we've seen an incredible increase in construction costs, market volatility. So about 2/3 of the increased costs are attributed to that. The other third has to deal with the repair, like just when you have deterioration that just continues, that's where that increased cost comes from.
So where are you getting the money? Where are you going to get the funding?
Well, funding is, as you know, and as Jamie knows, is a huge problem. Really, the only entity that could give us that amount of money would be the federal government. So we continue to ask our federal partners, but what we need to do as the CEO and the board chair is really think about creative solutions. What are we going to do with our buildings? And we have some, which is great. Our P&A would have been higher but for our PACT program, which is really turned around and comprehensively modernized some of our buildings that were in incredible disrepair. We also had our first trust board meeting last Friday, and we are incredibly hopeful that those tools, along with our own comprehensive modernization, will fix and bring in the money that we need.
Right. So, Jamie, walk me through a timeline of these repairs, right? Because some of them are much needed for this year. And I'm not talking about just slapping on some paint over, say, a mold or whatever it may be that people say are temporary fixes. How can you ensure, and do you have the staffing to get these repairs done so quickly?
So just to be clear, and I should make it clear, as much experience as I've had in affordable housing and in housing in the city, this is my 4th day on the job, so you're going to get a little bit of an informed perspective. Lisa's the expert. Having said that, when we say that these are $40 billion of it, or the number that's for the repairs that need to be made this year, they're urgent repairs. They aren't necessarily going to be made this year, but we've got the funding to make them. We need to line up the funding so that if we had all the funding in place this year, we could make them, and we'll do it as quickly as possible.
So then what is an urgent repair?
A roof.
Okay.
A steam leak. And what we do every day is prioritize really the catastrophic needs that we have. And we also do incremental fixes. For example, we replaced 8,000 roof fans. We cleaned 77,000 vents. That's not going to solve all of our mold and leak issues, but it does make it a little bit better while we're waiting for the money for those long-term fixes.
So, and a lot of you, both of you have experience in the crisis management division, right? But if you speak to some folks at NYCHA, the residents themselves, they have lost trust because for decades they've heard, we're going to fix it. Whatever CEO comes in, we're going to fix it. And then they just keep on dragging and dragging and dragging because of funding. So what makes you so confident you're going to get it and that this time is different?
I'm going to brag for Lisa for a second. I mean, the reason part of it this time is different is while NYCHA's had management of, like any agency, has had varying qualities of management over time, I think the management team that's in place now, Lisa, and also the people that work directly for her and the 12,000, many of the 12,000 people that work for NYCHA are the strongest that they've ever been. There's no question about it. Anybody who's dealt with them will tell you that. Part of that is the experience that Lisa and her team bring to the agency. Not only in the emergency management, but before, Lisa's a lifetime public servant. She's one of the nation's experts in her area of the law, which happens to be extremely critical to running and managing this agency through a time of crisis.
But you would say that the success of your leadership comes down to that funding, right? And if you don't get it, how do you make the repairs?
So, again, it goes back to the other tools that we have in our toolbox. We're not going to get $78 billion. Right. We all know that. So what can we do to figure out a way to make the repairs? And the way we can do that is what we've seen is tried and true. Our PACT program is incredibly successful. We have residents that are going to our developments that have transferred. We are looking towards the trust. The beauty of transferring from a Section 9 funding to Section 8 is we get nearly double the subsidy. That double subsidy is what's going to provide us with the money in the future for those repairs.
I know there's the federal oversight that's going to be hanging around as well, right? So there's that kind of looming over you at the same time. But I do want to ask real quick, because I know we're almost out of time. There was this whole talk of demolishing and rebuilding the Chelsea, Elliott, and Fulton houses in Lower Manhattan, right? Do you see that model expanding to other areas, and if so, where?
So I think it could. The beauty of NYCHA is that we are spread throughout the 5 boroughs in many different neighborhoods. So what's going on at Fulton, Elliott, Chelsea might not be a model for Staten Island or for Queens, but we have to use every tool that we have in our toolbox, if it works at Fulton, Elliott, Chelsea, and even if it doesn't, to make sure that there's not one-size-fits-all approach, and we're going to look at each development individually and see what's best for that community and that neighborhood.
Yeah, reality and realistic timelines are, I think, what people would just want to hear, and it sounds like you're both giving people the reality of it all, which is it's going to be some time.
You mentioned the federal monitor. You know, one thing I should say in answer to your earlier question, the federal government is a partner in this in a way they've never been before, and I think that's not to be missed.
Good. Keep us posted, because we want to stay on top of this. You guys, you're welcome back anytime on this program to talk about this very important issue, okay? Lisa,
Thank you.
Jamie,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here, and congrats on your new roles. Good luck.